Hello everyone, my name is Mohammad Reza Moini. I'm a PhD student in mechanical engineering at Polytechnic in Université de Montréal, and in this tutorial we want to talk about Python and Abaqus, how we can use Python in the Abaqus and how we can write a script to model a FE model or other kind of modeling in Abaqus. So first we need to install Python, and I think this is very easy and you can just search in the internet and there are a lot of tutorial to install the Python, and then we need to use a editor. I recommend you to use a Spider as an editor. This is a Spider. So here this is the command window or your install, so you can write whatever you want. A equal to 1, a is equal to 1, and here this is a script part. You can write your script, and here this is a very good feature of the Spider, which is called variable explorer. You can go to view pans and then active the variable explorer. You can see your variables. For example, a is an integer number which its size is equal to 1. So okay, let's write very simple function and write very simple data structure. But before that, I really recommend you to see the python.org tutorial, and I suggest you to read these parts. If I go to python.org tutorial, it's very good to read the parts 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and 9. You don't need to read all of them, but I think these parts are very important. You can write your own function just by reading this part. Before that, we can just write very simple functions. So this is the note simple function. So we define a function with def. F of x is equal to, for example, equal to x plus 1, y equal to x plus 1, and then return y. So this is my first function. I should save it, so I write it function. So if I run it, then if I write here f2, if f2 of 2 is equal to 3. So this is how we can write a function. Or we can write a matrix or vector. Vector. For writing matrix or vector, we need a library which is called NumPy. NumPy is a scientific package in Python, so you can use the NumPy. Most of the time, all the things that we need, it's in NumPy and or in other library, but NumPy is the most general library that we used. So we can write NumPy, import NumPy as np. So then we can write our matrix a is equal to np dot array 1, 2, 3, which is a vector. So if I run it, a is equal to this vector. Or we can write a matrix form a and in this form. So then a is equal to this form. Or if you work with MATLAB, in MATLAB we use zeros. Here we can write also b is equal to np dot zeros. We can define our shape 1 and 2, and then b is equal to this array with 1 row and 2 columns. Or we can also define a list. List is a data structure, so we can c is equal to empty list, and then we can write c dot append our number, or we can also dot append their a string value. For example, c dot append good. Then c is a list with digit number of 2 and good. And the advantage of list is that there is no limit for the size of the list, and the size of the list is variable. And the other things that I want to tell you is that we can have another script, and let's save it for main script, and then we can write import. We can import this function that we write here to this main file. So we can write from function import f. Okay, we import this function, and then we run it, and we have here, for example, print f of 3, then 30, or then we can have 31. So this is how we can import, or I can comment it and write it from function import all. This star represents all. So then we can have this. Okay, let's go for Aabaqus. This is Aabaqus, and so first I think it's better to go to graphic options and make it white, because I think it's better to use that, especially if you want to take a figure and put it in PDF document. So okay, the first thing that we want to talk in Aabaqus is that we want to write a function to generate this very simple geometry. So I recommend you to start with Macro Manager. Macro Manager helps us to see all the Python code that has been generated by Aabaqus during our simulation. For example, if I go to File and go to Macro Manager and create a new Macro Manager and call it, for example, test, it will be saved in your home directory. So I will continue, and if I make a geometry, 3D geometry called part 1, and then if I go to a sketch part, we should wait. Okay, let's go for a sketch part, and if I create a very simple square and put a dimension here, for example 25 or 20, and this side, it's, for example, this side is 30, and then if I extrude it for 50, I will have a cube, and then I stop the recording. The macro test has been added to this directory. So I will go to this directory, which is here. In this directory, this is all Macro Manager, and I open it with not plus plus. So this is the macro that I saved. Yes, this is the function that I saved. Okay, so I copy paste this. Oh, sorry. I copy this test function to a new script in my Spider, and for example I call it test, yeah, and or I call it geometry. Okay, And then you can see we have a lot of things here. So here all the libraries that Abaqus used are have been written here. So uh, to make it easier for Abaqus to read this script, I think it's better to copy paste this library to this part. For example, I want to show one of my script in Abaqus. For example, I go to one of my code in Abaqus, for example this one. So uh, these are the library that Abaqus use. So I copy paste these in my script to help to Abaqus. For example, from Abaqus import all, from Abaqus constant import all. These are all the libraries that Abaqus used. And in this function you can see this is our sheet size, and this is the way that how we build our geometry. This is the variable that I use, and for example this is the depth that I create my cube. So for example I can call it Z, and here for example I can call it this is if you remember that I delete my first point and I created another, so we can call it in a different way. So I can call it, instead of this value I can call it x, and instead of this value I can call it y. So if I write it here x and y and z, so and I can save it as a geometry, then I can write it, copy paste here, for example here, to different value. For example I don't know, 15 and 64 and 28, for example. And then I will create a new file, no, and then I will go to run a script and go to the directory that I saved my function, which were where was that? Here, it was here, geometry. So yeah, I run it and this is my geometry. So we can also have not position, so it is this position exactly the coordinate that I wrote, and the other points. So we can also make a new and then go for this bar, this console, and write our geometry. For example this one, geometry, and write different value, 100 and this value. Then we have this cube. Okay, this is very simple case just for starting to use Python in Abaqus. So with this function we can have any kind of geometry, and also in the next videos we can go for the other part, property and assembly and step and traction. For any kind of work that we want to do, we can just go for micromanager and take a macro and then go for the directory that we have and copy paste the function and just build a very convenient Python script to use in a variable case. I mean, you can write your own code and then write it for any kind of variable that you want to use. I hope that this